Welcome to our podcast, This Life, the Chronicles of Autism Mums. I'm Alison Saraf, and I'm joined each week by amazing women who happen to have children on the spectrum. We talk about navigating the ups and downs of parenting kids with autism and how that affected us and our lives as women, professionals, and mothers. Strap in, grab some tissues. Sometimes you'll cry from empathy and others from laughter. Join us on our journey of this life. So what would how would you, because obviously in those situations, for me, as soon as I would get in the car, if that happened, because it's happened to me a few times, then I would be trying to console myself and try and talk through it with myself and being very emotionally upset about it, because I think even when our kids were younger, I think I was still processing everything that came up, that it was just a constant reminder, another reminder of the struggles that we were all having, as a family with not with Noah, but with the autism. So how did you handle that? Like, how did it make you feel? But also, how were you kind of working through it?
Well, and this happened to me many times. It was not even one, 2 or 3 times,
You're
So,
an expert.
Expert. If it happens now, I can do a class on it.
just go and give the
But easier way out. But I would just try. In the beginning, I was crying in the car, on my way home, but I didn't want him to see that I was crying. And after that, I said, I became stronger and stronger and stronger. But I would just go home and then after some time, not immediately, but just have a conversation with Ricardo and explain to him why that lady behaved that way, and then she didn't mean that, she didn't know what she was talking about. Maybe there is no one with autism in her family, she doesn't know how.
So frustrating though that we have to that's it, isn't it? It's so frustrating that we need to go through that, and there is that level of I think that's that level of no understanding about the condition, that you would have a parent that would come up to you and physically say that, which is so judgmental and so terribly wrong. Do you think that the way that you would deal with it has changed now? Like from those few years ago when the kids were younger and they were in those kind of play areas, if you were to take yourself back 8 years later, would you deal with it in a different way?
Absolutely.
What would you do now?
I think, I would.
Would there be violence involved?
No, absolutely not. I have learned so much about autism, and I have studied so much about it, that I think I would just explain to this person,
you'd have the confidence to just
say, without any offense or anything, just to say what it is and why he's behaving that way. He doesn't mean any harm. He never hurt anybody. He was just trying to have fun.
But that's wonderful, because I'm still at that stage where when this comes up, I'm like, I expect people to know, and I'm thinking, why don't you know about
it's
this?
It's like a frustration and an anger almost that people don't know more. Yeah,
they don't know, and even in this day and age, if I tell someone, that he's autistic, he's like, what is autism? I'm like, I said, Google it, and then I'm like, then I tell myself, Huma, you're not being a good advocate, because I'm like, Google it. Why don't you know what is?
Yeah.
So I'm like that. I don't have the patience.
But this is the thing, and I think also as well, it starts. You and I were having a conversation. We were with some ladies a couple of weeks ago, and we got ourselves into a conversation. This is with our other children's mums' friends, group that we've known for years and years and years. And I won't go into the full story because other people will be listening, but it was exactly that situation, and the fact that these people have known us for such a long time, and they've known our children for such a long time, but the kind of comments and judgment that comes without any malice or any anger behind it, but just why didn't you do this? And it's like, well, there you go. I've never thought about that. Why don't I just do that? Yeah. And it's for us, it's so frustrating because it's almost like people are attacking your parenting style. And it's like, this is not about my parenting. I have 2 other, it's not about that. It's about the autism, and it's about the condition, and it's all about just trying to kind of navigate around that. And interestingly, my 2 girls go to a different school. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, than my son. I really struggled, and my husband and I really, really struggled for months and months and months to figure out what was the best for everybody, whether or not to keep them all in the same school or move them. And we moved them. So they don't accept children on the autism spectrum. And although we really struggled because we don't necessarily agree with that, we need to do what is right for our girls as well. And I think that's kind of where we've made progress as a family, whereby we accept that the world is not perfect. And also we do, whilst we're advocating for Noah, we have to put all of our children's needs first, and we need to look at them individually and see what is right for each of our children. Certainly now as they're getting older, and what's important to them, and in terms of their development, and what their opportunities are. So not like my girls didn't ask to go to this specific school, but we introduced it. And even though they were like, oh, it's a shame that Noah can't come, we said, well, we'll try it and see what happens. Absolutely thriving, doing great, loving it. But Lily, my youngest, came home from school, and they've made lots of friends and everything else. And my youngest is started having play dates and asking people back to the house. And she said to me, how do you think my friends are going to see Noah? Do you think it's going to be okay? And I was really shocked.
How old is Lily?
She's 8. And she said, because there's nobody like Noah at my school now, because at the other school there were children integrated into the classrooms. And I was really taken aback. And I think I'll probably always remember that conversation. And I was in her bathroom with her, and I didn't quite know what to say to her, because I felt kind of quite frustrated and angry, not at her, but by the situation. I felt very emotional. All of these emotions started coming, but I was like, I'm going to have to channel this, because it's going to come out in the wrong way. I wanted to be very clear, but I almost needed to take a minute to think about what I was going to say and how I was going to say it, because it's a really important topic. And especially because it was her that was, it's very important that all of my children feel comfortable in their house, and they're welcoming other people to come. So anyway, we had a conversation about it. I brought Maya into the conversation because she doesn't have people to our house, or hasn't since she started the new school. And I said to her, do you feel comfortable about having people here? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but what about Noah? And she said, well, you never really know what's going to happen with him. And I thought to myself, I said to them, well, what does he do that might make your friends feel uncomfortable? And they said, well, the neighbor came the other day and he just ran up to them and gave them a hug. I was like, okay. So is that it? And they both said, look, it's not, there's no behaviour, there's nothing that he does that is upsetting for us to see, or is going to upset anybody else. But I think it's that explanation of him maybe watching Peppa Pig, and then somebody saying, well, he's 11, why is he watching Peppa Pig? And then having to explain it or defend that situation, or the judgment that comes with it from children that have not actually been around these children. So they're not used to seeing behaviors that are maybe different to what they would come to expect from an 11-year-old, So I think the stress comes from having to justify almost their brother's behavior, and also for them saying, well, look, Lily's brother's a bit, and then having, they're girls and they're in those age groups where I think she was maybe worried that somebody might tease her or start talking and teasing about her brother, which I think she would find very upsetting.
Even bully her.
Yeah.
She could be bullied.
Yeah. And I think that I'm really happy that we kind of had that conversation, because anybody who's grown up with my children, no issue at all. They have got absolutely no problem at all with it. He's just who he is. Everyone accepts. They know, they understand. And there's no questions to answer. Whereas with new people, there's new questions. There's questions, and then have to be responses, and then there has to be a level of understanding. So it was interesting, because I just said to both of them, look, Maya, no issue. She's just a teenager. They go to the mall and, everything else. And she's got her own room and her own setup and whatever. So she can have people that come and, she wouldn't want to hang out with the other two anyway. But for Lily, I think we kind of talked it through. And, one of the ways that we kind of get around this is to slowly introduce Noah to situations and introduce him to new people. So we have to have a structure if somebody new is coming to the house, not to make him feel comfortable because he doesn't care, and not actually to introduce Noah to the guest, but to make Lily feel comfortable. And I think that's the thing for us is like, okay, well, in our first encounter, would you like us to be in the house? Would you like to meet for 30-minute introduce Noah, and then not physically remove him from the area, but you can go into your room and play if you feel more comfortable, or how do you want to, how does this this to work for you?
Listening you talk, I mean, it's like I'm thinking like the things which are pretty simple,
right?
It's such a task, like just. What is the thing that just inviting someone over, and we have to have a whole strategy, like like a military strategy, like
it's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting, ridiculous.
It's oh my god, it just, because I know like Heather makes sure that we don't have a social life. I mean, I'm just being mean here, but for a long time, if the neighbors would knock, he would be like, he'd open the door, he would like, no, he would close the door on their faces, like, that's it. I was like, oh, I want you to do that for a long time.
Not going out for tea today.
Yeah. So so he and he's at the age now where he wants friends, and he likes, and he's made some, like, a few good friends who do come over for study dates. So that's our play date. But for a long time, it was difficult for him to accept younger kids coming over for my other kids, and for a long time I also ignored that, because autism was our center of the universe. Everything was autism, everything was according to that. And I feel bad that my other kids, as you said, we would go on therapies, that was our outing, we would go on therapies together, and everything was, we would go on Heather's play dates together, where he's meeting his friends, I'm dragging the younger two along, kids, this is your play date too. And now I'm at this age where I'm like, no, as you said, that you shifted your girls to different schools because they are individuals, they have their own needs, and now I'm at that stage where I feel I'm not doing justice to other kids. Like Suleiman might have the need for a play date, and now his friends, like, I haven't actively gone out and done that for him, and I see that now other moms are approaching, oh, can you send Suleiman over to play?
They're individuals, exactly.
And I send him over, and I don't have to worry that something will happen. I know he'll be fine, and
you don't feel guilty.
And I don't feel, and I don't feel guilty now, because before I would be like, no, we are one unit. Where whether they liked it or not, I would be dragging them all together, whether they were happy with that or not. And I'm like, oh no, we were like, we have to go everywhere we go, we have to go together, but it's not healthy.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because that's how I was. And actually, now that my kids have grown up and they're all at different ages, and I think it's almost, we always say that those younger years are harder, but actually I think now it's more difficult. I mean, I'm loving having older children, because I think that Noah's at a point now where we really do get to enjoy our children more. I enjoy my children a lot more than I did when they were younger. And that sounds awful, but I think I was so focused on keeping them together, making sure that we got to the therapy. Everything was so much, that focus. And I think we've taken a little bit of a step back now, and we're just kind of enjoying seeing them grow and seeing them develop and seeing what people they're kind of developing and turning into in their own little personalities. But until you've just said that, it's really strange. And I don't know whether or not you felt as well that you had to keep yours together. Is that like a thing that you felt as well, that you were always together? You didn't want to kind of split them and send one to a play date and not the other. It was important for you to keep them together.
I would love to see that. Raphael has no friends, like his own friends, because our friends are so wonderful that they include them. Yeah. Every time they're invited to a birthday party or to a play date, it's always as a team.
They go together.
It's not I'm inviting Ricardo only. No, I'm inviting Raphael and Ricardo. Yeah. So it's very, very special to us, to feel that they are welcome together, because they're twins. They're the same age. They're both boys.
It's a different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah. If it was a boy and a girl, it would be different. But, they're both boys. They're the same age. And then we always invite. So we haven't experienced that yet. Yeah. And this is something that we really appreciate. I mean, I think this is something that Qatar brings to us. Yeah. Because it's a small country. Absolutely. And you feel so welcome.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a family. It's a family thing, because you don't have your family. Most of us don't have our family here. So our friends become our families. And the same with Noah, really, is the fact that he's got his own little set of mates, and they all kind of rally around and no one's judged, and he's got the opportunity to go to birthday parties and play dates and things like that, and it's a normal progression, isn't it? It's you're growing up, and then you have to go and do things on your own, and that's what they want to do as well. Is Mariam started having play dates yet, or is she still a little bit younger?
No, I feel I feel their development has been affected. I'll take the mom guilt. It's my fault, but she's still she's like, for example, like yesterday we were at an iftar, and throughout she was like, I hate this place, I don't want to be here, I want to go home, in front of the host. I was like, just don't say that in front of... It's like, this is boring. And I know, because as it progresses, by the time we're about to leave, I was like, I'm having so much fun, Mom. I said, we're about to leave. I was like, I'm playing hide and seek, I'm having so much fun. I said, okay, that's good, So it's like that. It's a constant challenge. Like I'm having my iftar, she's hitting me, she's hitting the nanny, she's like all that frustrated because I took her out of anxiety. Because I took her out of her comfort zone. And so we're still facing that. But I was thinking, do you feel like I would feel guilty that, if Heather is not having a good time, no one will have a good time. Like if Heather cannot have that, Suleiman and Mariam cannot have that either. They cannot have...
that makes sense. As a mother, that makes so much sense.
They cannot have a good social life. I'm like, I didn't say it like that, but I dragged everyone to be a martyr, that, we will all sacrifice together. But it's not, I'm the parent, they don't have to.
No, it's very, I think it's just so difficult. It's such a difficult thing emotionally as a parent to be able to strike the balance right and to get everything right. There's so much guilt, there's so much emotion. And I think for me personally, especially in those early days and years, I kind of was very blinkered. And even now when I look back and actually looking forward, and even now in the moment, I am a constant grappling with is everybody okay? Is everybody getting what they need? And I don't mean what they need in terms of food or, or nourishment or sleep or whatever. Are their emotional, the needs of my children, are they all being met? And I think it's such a tricky thing with the kids, and it's such a tricky thing with the dynamics that we have in the families. to be able to try and get that just right. So I think it's definitely a work in progress. Should we go on to our top tips now? So what are our top tips, ladies, for anyone who's listening, for, happy siblings and just trying to get that dynamic right? And, what are your best recommendations and tips for, striking a really kind of solid and strong balance? As we've all talked about our failures.
Yeah.
What will we do different next time? What do you think yours would be?
I guess mine would be that at the stage that I'm at, I would tell my kids that it's to be comfortable with what we have at home, and to accept that, and to be embarrassed by it, and because that will make them a more I'm at loss for words, more caring, more empathetic human beings. And they're too young to realize that. But as you said, when Lily came home and she said, oh, there are no kids like that in my class, so I felt she was more richer when she was surrounded by such
Absolutely.
kids. So I feel, I'm going to use the word, it's a blessing to have an autistic child in my family. And I feel it might be challenging now, but my kids will be richer by this experience.
From that experience and exposure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So something to learn from, really, and something to,
Yeah.
Karina?
I think I had to deal with my guilt for many years in terms of not giving the attention that Ricardo needed, because it was impossible not to focus on Raphael. Stop focusing on Raphael because he needed, and I was learning everything. We were learning as a family how to navigate through autism, and we left Ricardo for some time. His attention, he didn't have the attention that he needed, and he was showing that to us in different ways, but we were able to see that years later. It was nothing that we could, he became super smart at school, and that was a way that he was calling us our attention. But here I can get good grades. Look at me.
Wow.
He just would hug me all the time and say, I love you. And then for me to read that, it took a while. I said, he's seeking. He needs attention. He needs my time. So, my top tip would be to just look at your neurotypical child. Take a moment, leave your guilt aside and everything, but take a moment and see, what does he or she need? Do they have what they need, like I said, in terms of emotion and time? Because it's so important. And he was so little. He was 3-4 years old.
Oh my God.
In that I had to deal with my guilt for quite some time, and then I'm sure things are okay, but I knew deep inside that I was doing my best, and I thought I was doing my best.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
We're all trying our best.
We
all try.
I wish my kids would try to impress me by being good in school. I wish they would get my attention that way. I was listening to you talk. I was like, oh my God, I want that.
Okay, and my top tip would be just echoing really what I was talking about with Lily. With regard to the siblings and how they feel that their sibling might be perceived outside of their family unit, just to really talk to them about, the situation that they might be feeling a little bit uncomfortable about, and any attention that they're kind of asking for, look out for those signs. Are they asking for attention? Are they screaming out for attention? Are their needs being met? So I think it's all about communication, having conversations, and trying to be with them and discuss and talk through what a solution might be to something how they are feeling. So I think communication channels need to stay open. And for them to know that they are as valued and just as important as as anyone in the house. You know, everyone's valued, everyone's the same, everyone should be treated equally and loved and, you know, valued for their contributions to, you know, making our family a family. So
you're just so caught up with the autism, and then it's hard for us to,
and it's hard for children to understand that. So I think that communication and talking that through, and not making them feel guilty for talking about how they feel in terms of, you know, if they feel that they're not getting enough attention or whatever, but just validating that and saying, well, I'm sorry that you feel like that, I'll try better, you know, and explaining the fact that I'm trying to help your sibling, I'm trying to help your brother, but, you know, my job is for all of you, not just for him. So thank you for telling me, and I'll try to do a better job.
Yeah.
I'll try. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today, ladies. It's so lovely to have a chat and catch up.
Thank you.
And we will see you for the next episode of this live, the Chronicles of Autism.